For better or worse, American comics are mostly going to be remembered for their superhero stories. As much as I'm a fan of superheroes, it can become frustrating to see other genres within the medium get ignored. However, if you think all comic books have to offer are spandex clad heroes who eventually get replaced by exceptionally annoying self inserts, you should be happy to learn nothing could be farther from the truth. Dig deeper than your Spider-Mans and your Batmans, and you'll find a variety of genres, ranging from fantasy epics to westerns to horror stories. Many other horror comic series that unfortunately fell by the wayside in modern times, such as Werewolf by Night, Swamp Thing, and many others. For this Spooktober, I'd like to highlight one such series, the Tomb of Dracula, a Marvel comic which ran for 70 issues, starting publication in 1972 and ending in 79. The first issue follows Frank Drake, a young man who burned away all his inheritance money with reckless spending. The comic never outright says what Frank spent all his money on, but I imagine it was gotcha games. One day, Drake casually mentions to his buddy Clifton that he's related to Count Dracula. Somehow believing Frank, Clifton convinces him to go to the old family home in Transylvania to try and sell the house. This is portrayed as a stupid idea in the comic, but IRL, I don't know, man. I think Castle fucking Dracula would sell for a pretty penny. Accompanying Frank and Clifton is Frank's girlfriend, Jeannie, who also used to date Clifton. You see, Cliff is secretly planning to take Frank down, steal his GF, and sell the house himself. What a jerk. This quite obviously goes wrong, and soon enough, Clifton reawakens the Prince of Vampires, Lord of the Night Creatures, Son of the Dragon, Dracula. The first issue features several hallmarks of classic horror stories. There's a square-jawed lead facing up against evil, there's our damsel in distress who sadly doesn't get naked, but she does show off some cleavage, and there's even like a village full of people who live in fear of Dracula and eventually form an angry mob, complete with torches and everything. The whole thing feels very classic is what I'm saying, a comment which extends to the main man himself. You see, old Drac here actually looks pretty damn good if I say so myself. He's consistently drawn looking vaguely demonic and beastly, but also handsome and regal, which is more or less precisely how he should be depicted. The first issue is a great introduction to the series' tone. I'm going to tell you right now that if you're looking for a terribly unique take on Dracula, you're not getting that. This isn't trying to make Dracula an action hero, nor a tragic anti-hero, or anything like that. This is Dracula in full-on blood-sucking predator mode, going around drinking the blood of attractive young women. He's a villain through and through, and you know what? I consider that a breath of fresh air. Tomb of Dracula sees the big man as its protagonist, but not its hero, and the stories throughout the issues see several different characters rise up against the Count and his ever-growing evil, a formula which allows us to see several lesser-known corners of the Marvel Universe. Oh, and that reminds me, yes, Tomb of Dracula is in fact considered canon to the Marvel Universe at large, and it kinda has to be, since none other than Blade himself gets introduced here. So yeah, if you enjoy reading the first appearances of popular characters, there's just one more reason for you to read this. The comic didn't really have a consistent writer-artist duo throughout its entire run, which I guess can be seen as a double-edged sword. On one hand, it more or less prevents the series from having one of those legendary long runs by a single creative team. You know, like how Lee and Kirby wrote a lot of Fantastic Four, or Giffen and DeMatteis' Justice League International. On the other hand, it is fun seeing the sheer roster they managed to assemble here as the series goes along. Both seasoned veterans and up-and-coming talents who'd go on to be major stars show up here. There's Jim Starlin, Neil Adams, Gardner Fox, Chris Claremont, the list goes on. That isn't to say Tomb of Dracula is devoid of continuity, far from it. Besides Frank, we get introduced to several other characters who have a bone to pick with Dracula, and most of them get dedicated story arcs fleshing them out. It's not Lord of the Rings or anything, but Tomb of Dracula manages to craft a pretty memorable mythology and cast of its very own. Credit goes to the editors, which include Marv Wolfman. Back in the Gabriel Knight review, I said anything horror themed was eligible for Spooktober, not necessarily just horror stuff. And this kind of applies here. Not because Tomb of Dracula doesn't try to be scary, but because, well, it's just kinda hard to make drawings look genuinely scary. I'm sorry if this offends anyone, but it's true. It's extremely rare to see the likes of Junji Ito, who actually managed to create unsettling images. And even then, I'd say his work is more disturbing than really scary. So yeah, Tomb of Dracula isn't gonna give you nightmares, but it will give you a fun, spooky time that's perfect for Halloween. Alright, so those are more or less my thoughts on the comic book. Now, allow me to rant about the incompetence of modern Marvel for a bit. This rant is only marginally related to the topic at hand, so I won't be mad if you just decide to leave the video. Usually I like to keep the channel positive, but I just have to vent about this. So, okay, I mentioned Blade gets introduced in Tomb of Dracula, right? Well, at the time of recording this, Marvel recently announced that the planned Blade reboot starring Mahershala Ali was effectively cancelled, getting hit with the indefinitely postponed label. I wouldn't say Blade is like my favorite comic character of all time or anything, not even really top 5, but he's a cool dude, and regardless, how in the actual hell do you screw this up? Let's play catch up for a bit. So, back in the 2000s, Warner Bros., weird, right? I mean, the owners of DC made Marvel movies, whatever. They made, or at least produced, a trilogy of Blade movies. The less said about Blade Trinity, the better, but the first 2 movies are still looked back on fondly to this day as rock-solid action horror movies, with an incredible lead played by the legendary Wesley Snipes. You see, Snipes did something incredible with those movies. He managed to hit the sort of pitch-perfect balance between goofy and cool that, honestly, I had only ever seen before with Dante from Devil May Cry. The love for this character is so huge, he was even prominently featured in Deadpool and Wolverine, and some people say he was one of the best parts of that movie. All the love for Blade is probably what caused actual Oscar-winning actor Mahershala Ali to hit up Marvel and say he was interested in rebooting the character within the MCU. So, in short, you have a beloved character that people want to see return, and you have a beloved actor who wants to play him. How do you screw this up? Well, apparently, Marvel spent the better part of a goddamn decade feeding Ali subpar scripts where Blade, the title character, was effectively relegated to the 3rd or 4th protagonist in his own movie. Who was the actual main character, you ask? Blade's lesbian teenage daughter, of course. What is actually wrong with Marvel's writers? Why make it so the very first appearance of Blade in the MCU, he's already the old mentor passing the mantle to a younger generation? Is this what anybody, and I mean anybody, wanted to see out of Blade's first appearance? If Hollywood had anything resembling competent people working on it, we would now be in the pre-production phase for the 2nd Blade movie, not still trying to get the first one off the ground. Oh my god, okay. You want to pitch for a Blade movie in the MCU? Here's the damn pitch. John Wick, but he fights vampires. Oh, you want more? Alright, Blade goes to England to investigate a strange increase in disappearances and supernatural occurrences. One of the missing persons is none other than Frank Drake himself. The movie would make it clear that there's this whole world of secret monster hunters running around in the shadows, passing by unseen, such as was shown in the Werewolf by Night TV special. Oh, speaking of which, in the same way that each John Wick movie features a series of memorable supporting characters, the Blade movie would feature a supporting cast consisting of Hannibal King, the Black Knight, Werewolf by Night, Man-Thing, and Elsa Bloodstone, all of which have previously met Blade in some form or another. The plot would be about Deacon Frost, played by, Kiefer Sutherland or someone, attempting to get some sort of MacGuffin that requires the blood of Dracula's heir or some stuff like that to activate, which would then make Frost king of vampires. Put in a bunch of stylish action scenes of Blade and the supporting cast killing vampires, include Frost's ability to create doppelgangers as a way to justify a Blade mirror match, Make it so Blade and King have some great banter. I don't know. Post-credit scene is Blade getting teleported to the Sanctum Sanctorum by Doctor Strange. Also, there's a guy in a biker costume who turns out to be Ghost Rider. Strange says he's putting together a team, and we cut to black. There you go. That's the movie. I'm a talentless jerkwad online, and I came up with that in literally 15 minutes. How incompetent do you have to be in order to have nothing to show for it after several years? Whatever. Modern Marvel sucks. The sky is blue. Moving on. I think that was more or less it for today. Check out Tomb of Dracula if you're in for a fun, spooky time, and Marvel sucks. So, yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Sorry about this Spooktober not being as eventful as the previous one, but in general, my ability to write and record videos has been affected by real-life stuff. In any case, thank you everyone for your continued support, and I'll see you next time.